From the Dignity Health Studios of the Bakersfield Californian, it's time to open up with real people and real talk about real stuff. And now, a special welcome to our friends throughout California, across the nation, and around the world to this week's edition of Open Up.
And welcome and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Open Up. I'm Tina Miller.
And I'm Don Clark, your favorite pair on the air, and glad to be here with you today.
Yes, definitely. Well, Denise stepped in for a few minutes and brought a beautiful bouquet of flowers, Don. And Nature's Fruit Market and Juice Bar get to be the recipient after the show today.
Absolutely.
Yes. And Don, speaking of Nature's Fruit Market and Juice Bar, the delicious, ever so good Alibaba is what we're drinking today, and it's got everything good and healthy in it. Nature's Fruit Market and Juice Bar at their new location, 2000 H Street here in Bakersfield.
The old Henleys, and their grand opening coming up on the 28th. Is it not? Sunday the 28th?
Yes.
And from 1 to 4 p.m. We'll all be there and hope you can be there too.
Yes.
It is a wonderful store, and they are so dedicated to your health and to all of our health as we are here at Open Up.
Yes.
Today, go ahead.
We have an exciting person on the line today.
Oh, my gosh. We have two remarkable men with us today. You will definitely want to stay tuned for the full hour because our first guest is... It's just a remarkable man. What can I say? He's a former correspondent for CNN. He is a prolific Hollywood screenwriter, and he is the creator of 5 television series like Lois and Clark, many others that you've known. He's written and helped produce and produced motion pictures, and he's with us now. He is the only scriptwriter since Rod Serling ever to be elected president and chief executive officer of the prestigious Television Academy of Arts and Sciences. And of course, we're talking about Bryce Zabel, who we have on the phone from his beautiful home in Agora Hills, California. Bryce, you're there, right?
I am there, and I'm ready to open up.
You bet.
However, if you want to send me a case of Alibaba immediately, that might even help.
You would love it, Bryce. I'm telling you, this is potent stuff.
Yes.
Bryce, 9/11
yes.
posed a very unique challenge for you and the entire industry that you represent. Tell us about that and the 7 lessons that you learned from that experience.
Well, let's see how many we can actually get. I'll tell you, the main thing that makes this story, I think, somewhat compelling is that, when I ran for the office of chairman and CEO of the TV Academy, I kind of figured, well, if I won, then I would be recognized for being the first writer to hold the position since Rod Serling, and I thought, well, that might be it. I got elected in August of 2001, and less than a month later, of course, 9/11 hit, and so immediately, I was thrust into probably making the biggest decision ever to face that institution, and certainly one of the most incredible times of my life, because just to make the timeline clear, I get elected, 9/11 hits, the Emmys are scheduled for September 16th, 2001, 5 days later. So we had to scramble to ask ourselves things that other people might have had some time to think about. I mean, we were watching the TV at the same time everyone else was, seeing these horrific images from around our nation and feeling just as terrified and sad and everything as everyone else. And at the same time, we had to ask ourselves, is it possible to even imagine that 5 days from that event, people would be ready to watch celebrities in evening gowns and tuxedos walking on a red carpet? The answer felt like no, but at the same time, the Emmys had gone 49 years without ever being canceled, and so the question was, were we going to do that? And the Oscars went on during World War II and the Korean War and the Vietnam War, so we had a lot of things to think about. So I guess I've never stopped thinking about them, Don, and you and I have known each other many, many years over many hills and valleys, but the one thing that I'll never forget is having to go through 9/11, and that's why I felt compelled to write this essay for LinkedIn about some of those lessons learned.
And that essay has now gone out to untold thousands, maybe far more than that. And And as you said, this is an event. What, it goes to 90 countries. It's watched by millions and millions of people.
It's intimidating. On a good day, it's intimidating to be the chairman of the TV Academy on Emmy Day because you have all the technical details to deal with. But at the same time, you're expected to give a speech that, frankly, nobody wants to hear. I mean, the highlight of the Emmys is certainly not the chairman coming out. But when you do come out, you're speaking to a theater of 6,000 people, and you have people in the front row like Brad Pitt or any number of stars from your favorite TV shows. So that's intimidating, and you know that you're live before 90 million people. So it can be intimidating. One year, by the way, just to show you, just to follow that metaphor of intimidation, I went out there. I had my minute and a half to speak. I start speaking, and the teleprompter stops. Now, if you're live before 90 million people, you don't get a do-over. You can't yell at the cameraman. You have a minute and a half, and then you're off the stage because the thing is timed out. So I felt like, well, I don't know what to do here. But I guess I wrote the darn speech. I might as well try to remember what I wrote. So I started extemporizing. They fixed the teleprompter. The guy on the teleprompter has no idea where I am now because I'm not on script, and he starts running the teleprompter as fast as he can. So I'm seeing this blur of words in front of me. And by the time I get back to my seat, I'm just like practically in tears. I just feel like it's been, the world's most embarrassing moment. I sit down next to my wife Jackie, and I go, God, that was terrible. I'm really sorry. She goes, why? What happened? So it goes to prove, you're always your worst critic, I suppose,
Wow,
and that things can work out.
Well,
But that's not what happened 9/11. I know that we're here to talk about 9/11, which was really what I think what you have to understand is because of the timing, every member of the media was looking for a sidebar story to the main story. And the cultural sidebar story of what will this do to us as a nation and a culture naturally gravitated toward Hollywood. And once you gravitated toward Hollywood for what it would do to us culturally, you needed sort of a hat to hang your story on. And the cancellation of the Emmys became that story. And it was a 2-month-long story. In a nutshell, what happened is we went 49 years without postponing the Emmys or canceling them, and then on my shift I did it twice. The first time was immediately after 9/11, where we canvassed people and said, what are your thoughts? But I sort of knew in my heart we couldn't possibly go on, so we canceled those. We eventually rescheduled them for October 7th, which we felt was like almost a month later, and with respect and sadness we could still go on because we should go on. I think we felt that that's one of the things that we had an obligation to do, to carry on. And the nation could probably stand to see their celebrities talking about important matters like what had happened. So we felt like we should go on. On the morning of October 7th, I'm getting ready to go do the Emmys for real, and my phone rings and a friend says, turn on your TV. I turn on the TV and we're invading Afghanistan. So we had to canvass everyone again, and we came to the conclusion that nobody wanted to go to a party on the night that we went to war. So we canceled the Emmys a second time, and that involved sending everybody home, turning limos around, literally, that had people with evening gowns and tuxes on the way to the Shrine Auditorium, sending them home. And we had 3,000 gourmet meals prepared. That the positive news is we gave those to homeless shelters, and people ate very well that night, and we're very proud of that.
Yes.
But so we had to cancel them a second time, and then finally we said, well, we're going to do them on November 4th, and as luck would have it, we did do them on November 4th, but November 4th of 2001 happened to be the 7th game of the World Series, one of the most exciting World Series around. I think it was the Yankees and the Diamondbacks. And so we had the Emmys going up against the World Series. But I thought that was a great thing, because what that meant is we had 2 live shows happening in America at the same time, and we were carrying on, and I think that was the lesson of that.
You bet. Well said, Bryce. Let's start down these critical lessons that you've learned that apply to so many situations. And here you are, when faced with this momentous decision whether to cancel, the first thing you did was seek consensus. Tell us about that.
I mean, in order to, in writing this essay, which people can get, I think, by, Googling, if they're on LinkedIn, they can go see it. But if not, you Google LinkedIn, lessons learned, Emmys, 9/11, whatever, you should be able to find it. But what I really sat down to do was I was just saying, well, I was just going to write a first-person story about it. And then as I started to write it, I realized, I was in a very unique position to learn a few things. And so they literally came out to be 7 rules of how to deal with this kind of crisis where you don't have time to get all the facts. So the first rule was to seek consensus, which is even if you can't get all the facts, get some of them. Find out what other people think, because in the midst of a crisis, what you're thinking is part of the puzzle and maybe the most important part, but it's not the only part. You have to talk and reach out to other people. So the first thing that we did with the Emmys post 9/11 is spend 9/11 and frankly, the morning of 9/12 calling around town. And when the Academy leadership and the network leadership compared notes, we basically realized that this was a non-starter, and so we canceled it immediately. But then we got into what my second rule was, which is establish tone, which is how are you going to handle this? You're still on the hot seat. People are still going to be asking questions, and in fact, during 9/11, they were asking them at a greater pace than I've ever seen. And I've been a reporter for a number of years, and I've never seen that kind of thing. I mean, literally, I had every network, every newspaper, every magazine calling for a comment about this thing. I've never seen that. It was unbelievable.
You were the one. Your career was. You were the one asking the questions. Now you're being asked the questions. You're the one in the spotlight.
And that is good preparation, but it is not the same thing. It's easy to hide behind asking a question, and it's more complicated to answer them. So for our tone, we felt that the tone that we should offer is that we were not perfect people. We were analyzing things, and we were going to try to be transparent. And by that I mean there's a tendency in a crisis for people to say, well, whatever you do, don't tell them what we're thinking, because that would let people into, like if you're the oil company and you've had an oil spill, it's like, well, don't tell them what we're really doing. But in fact, in today's world, transparency is everything. So if you're going to tell people the truth, then you don't have to look for the right answer. All you have to really do is give them the real answer, and sometimes that'll be, I don't know, or I'll get back to you, but it's still an answer, and it shows that you're on their side, not on the other side, which sort of leads me to my third rule, which is
before Bryce,
Yeah.
before we get to our third rule, I'm hearing from our producer Chris McCullough, whom you met on the telephone. Great guy. We need to take a brief break here, and we'll be right back.
That's the first rule, Don. Take a break.
Take a break. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. It's Bryce Sable.
I'm a comparison shopper. I shopped around. I did look on the internet.